It's hard to imagine a place with a more brutal and tragic past than Fremantle Museum in Western Australia. It was built in the 1860s to house convict men and women who had reportedly gone insane after suffering the cruelties of the British penal system. It was once called the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum, and before the installation of padded cells, prisoners were chained and doused with cold water if they became uncontrollable. The building has had a haunted reputation for as long as people can remember, and according to staff in the old limestone museum, no less than 4 ghosts roam its rambling corridors. Visitors to the museum have also reported strange experiences. One witness is producer and director Jerry Atkinson, who wrote a play about a ghost and staged it in the museum quadrangle at night. The leading lady, a girl called Judy, was in a period costume, and at intermission he followed her into the building to discuss the next scene. Jerry says,
I noticed Judy going up the steps to the dressing room, so I called out to her as I wanted to discuss the change in one of her next scenes, but oddly enough, she didn't answer me. I noticed Judy kept walking up the stairs wearing a different period costume from what she had on before. I kept calling out to her, but I still didn't get a response. I saw her walk into the room we were using as a dressing room. She closed the door. I was annoyed at this, as everyone knew not to ever close that door, as we had children on the set and we didn't want to risk them being locked in, as the locks were open. I was becoming frustrated and thought Judy may have been upset about something, and that's why she wasn't responding to me. As I tried to open the door, I was startled to hear a voice behind me. I turned. There was Judy, in her original costume and following me up the stairs. After telling Judy what had just happened, I turned the door handle, which opened straight away, and we both entered the dressing room. I had definitely heard soft moaning coming from inside, but there was not a soul to be seen. The room was empty. There was no other exit from this room. I was in a daze, as I knew what I had just seen and heard. And it wasn't Judy. I decided to stop work for the night, and over the next few days, I forced it from my mind. But I never forgot.
over the years, several staff members have testified to seeing the ghost of a woman who carries a lamp and moans softly as she wanders the museum galleries at night. The ghost lady seems to be endlessly searching for something or someone. It is believed to be the apparition of a convict woman who went mad with grief after her young daughter was abducted more than a century ago. Records show that the woman eventually committed suicide by jumping from the first floor window of what is now the Investigator Gallery and the room which we used as the dressing room on the night that the actors were performing this play. The ghost lady seems to react most strongly when young schoolgirls visit the old asylum. A former museum attendant witnessed one such incident. She said, "For a building with so much past tragedy and sadness, there must be some waves left behind, and that's what I always did feel. Whenever anything happened, I always felt this sense of agitation or regression. I remember clearly when a school was visiting the building that 3 young schoolgirls were wandering around when I witnessed 2 of the girls locked the 3rd girl in the room where the ghost lady was said to have jumped out of the window. The young girl locked in was demanding to be let out, while the other 2 outside the room were laughing, thinking it was a harmless practical joke on their friend
The young girl who was locked in then started to yell and shout, begging to be let out of the room. The other two girls became afraid and ran away, while their friend kept screaming inside the locked room, "Please, please let me out. I'm afraid. Please let me out." The attendant heard the screams and ran to let the young girl out. The girl ran wildly past the attendant and raced down the stairs without stopping, just screaming. After she had settled down, the young girl stated to the attendant, "There was something in that room with me. I was terrified. I couldn't get out. The wind was so strong in that room, but there were no windows open. I saw a woman coming towards me, and she was carrying a lamp of some sort, like an old-fashioned lamp, and she had on a long, old-fashioned dress. I could see straight through this woman. I was terrified. I had never seen anything like this in my life before." When the attendant went into the room to check, of course there was no one there. No open window, no wind. But the attendant knew. She knew that the ghostly woman had come to try and reclaim who she thought was her child.
Another visitor to this building was in one of the rooms when all of a sudden a glass bottle sitting on a coffee table seemed to just float up in the air, and then in a flash it dropped and shattered. At first they thought it may have been a trick put on by staff members, some sort of entertainment for the visitors, but that was not the case at all. There have been many paranormal investigators who have stayed at the museum, each with their own harrowing sightings and stories of apparitions and ghostly activity. The ghost lady with the lamp is seen by many. It is said she is determined to find her missing child. We hope she does, and they can both be together for eternity, at peace at last.
Although Australia is classed as a young society, being new in comparison to other historical countries around the world, it is well known that Australia has a reputation for having some of the world's most haunted places. We will be doing stories on these hauntings in future stories. These are just a couple of the many stories related to the haunted buildings of the Fremantle Museum.